energy. Renewable energy is generated from sources that naturally replenish themselves and never run out. The most common sources are solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, and biomass. Over 80% of the total energy consumed by humans is derived from fossil fuels. However, renewables are the fastest growing source of energy in the world. Renewable energy has many benefits. First, it can combat climate change because it creates no direct greenhouse gas emissions. The only emissions that they produce are indirect, meaning those that result from manufacturing parts, installation, operation, and maintenance. But even those are minimal. Second, renewable energy can decrease pollution and therefore reduce threats to our health. Wind, solar, and hydroelectric systems create no air pollution emissions, and geothermal and biomass energy systems emissions are much lower than non-renewable energy sources. Third, renewable energy is a reliable source of power. Because renewable energy sources are, well, renewable, they will never run out. Once built, renewable facilities cost very little to operate, and the fuel is often free. As a result, renewable energy prices tend to be stable over time. While renewable energy has many advantages, it is not without downsides. It is difficult for renewable energy sources to generate power on the same large scale as fossil fuels. Building wind farms and dams can disrupt wildlife and migration patterns and lead to ecological destruction. Both solar and wind energy are intermittent. They only generate power while the sun is shining or while the wind is blowing. Batteries can store excess energy for later use. However, they are often costly. While renewable energy presents some challenges, it also offers an environmentally friendly alternative to the greenhouse gas emissions and pollution of fossil fuels. And as advances in technology make renewable energy more accessible, affordable, and efficient, an end to climate change could be within our reach.
All right. So, what is renewable energy? All right. So, when we talk about sustainable, we want to preserve something for our future. So, those things that we can finish using it, those species that we can preserve, okay? So, we try to preserve it. So, by how? One of it is to we damage our ecosystem, we damage our environment in as as fewer as possible chances. Means that we do as little damage as possible. Those things that can finish, we use as little as minimal as possible. Like for example, our petroleum. All right. So we know that once if we finish using it, there will be no more. It might take millions of years later for the earth to finally, under high temperature, high pressure, and so on, and cook this particular hydrogen and carbon, and in the end, it will become a new batch of, let's say, petroleum again. But however, that process takes thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of years to finally produce that. As scientists actually believe that this kind of, let's say, this kind of petroleum reservoir actually underneath the ground is actually from the Jurassic era, whereby a lot of these dinosaurs actually, they pass away, and due to there's a Big Bang theories, and so on. Whereby the meteor actually hit the earth, and so on, and causing a lot of this, let's say, the debris actually floating in the sky, whereby this sunlight cannot actually reach all the plants, and so on. And then in the end, all these herbivore category of dinosaurs starts faded away, means or eventually all dead, because there are no plants to eat, and so on. And then some of these, let's say this carnivore, actually because of the herbivores all dead. So the carnivore actually, so when they're still alive, they still can eat the meat of the herbivore, right? So after that, so running, as you know, the food chain ran out. So a lot, species by species, basically, actually will vanish. Some they might, because that would take sometimes, okay, before it actually, before the last dinosaurs actually died. Okay, so some of them which we believe that they might be mutating to something else, like those let's say the big giant lizard that we have nowadays, okay, the iguana, and so on. And even chicken, they said it's actually is let's say it's a mutation from T-Rex, and they say velociraptors, and so on. But however, that's just some speculation, actually, being actually suggested by the paleontologists. Okay, so paleontologists are dinosaurs digger, right? Basically, is they actually go and dig for the bones, and so on, to study, and some of them, they even come up with a lot of theories whereby dinosaurs actually have feathers, they can fly, and so on. But that's another story. All right. So we all know that we might change ourselves, to suit the environment. That's the one of these saying, nah? All right. So in this video, basically we were saying that we want to preserve things for our environment. All right, for our environment. How? Okay, so because in the end, what we can use that is sustainable, okay, that can be renewed, basically, as mentioned in this video, is that the sun, the wind, okay, the thermal energy, the river, the sea that we have, those were like something like they exist even before the human, right? And even in the biblical text, it says so, when it says how God created the world, the universe, and so on. He created the sun, the moon, and the earth, and so on, and the wind, and so on. Then the last day, only they produce create the human being, right? So we were the last products, and after that, God rest. All right. So, however, that's if you believe, lah. Okay, if you believe it, okay. So that's the case. But actually, if coincide with those actually who actually do not believe in such thing, they will say that it formed from nuclei, atoms, and so on, and forms, with single cell creatures, to actually multi cells, and so on, and then they start to have creatures in the water. They start with something like the amoeba, or something, and slowly become something bigger, something that crawl out from the water, and slowly become human. So it takes millions of years to basically for that to happen. All right. So there's a lot of things that is if you finish it, that's it. That's it. No more. Okay. So it says here that we must actually look into some of this area that we can actually is renewable by using solar power, okay, by using stream, okay, by using, let's say, wind, and so on. But however, there are a few disadvantage here. For example, if using solar power by night hour, okay, there are no sun during night time. Okay, so can we use moon? Nah, not bright enough, right? Okay, so what if wind? Okay, wind power. Now it must be windy there. Only you can get this propeller moving, and so on. That created the kinetic energy that we can actually transform into the power. Okay, electric power, and so on. Okay, So there must be a lot of rivers, and so on in your country or in your area to actually generate enough flow of streams, in the river to generate the power. Now, what if places like Egypt, and so on, you don't have much river there, okay? Okay, and most of it is sand. Maybe sunlight is okay there, right? But most of the time it's hot, okay? So it actually have some downside of it, but however, we do know that the damages done by this kind of renewable energy is actually minimum. All right. So a lot of these countries, a lot of this philosophy, or this company is basically actually using this kind of renewable energy as one of the sources to become part of the solution. I say part of the solution, not all of the solution, because like it or don't like it, we created a lot of waste during our lifetime. Just that, how are we going to reduce it? That's what matters now, because it's now people start to be aware of this thing. Okay, if we keep on producing waste, and so on, we might left nothing for our next generation. So in the end, we start with ourselves, we start with our nation, we start with our area, and so on, to actually be part of the solutions. Okay, so just part of the. All right. All right, we look into this next video. All right, so what is renewable versus non-renewable, and be aware of this next term that's going to come out, renewable material. All right, because when we talk about renewable, now what is there to be renewable? Yeah, I know that we use lesser fossil fuel, and so on. Okay, our aircon actually is powered by sunlight, our aircon actually is powered by wind, and so on. Okay, then how about my plastic bags? How about my tissue paper? How about my wipe, the wet tissue, and so on? How about that? Okay, so anything that can be renewable there? Yes, it is. So we have this renewable material. All right, we'll talk about it later.
What are natural resources? Natural resources are things that people use that come from the environment. Earth's natural resources include light, air, water, plants, animals, stone, soil, minerals, and fossil fuels. In our solar system, the Earth is truly unique, and it's kind of amazing. People of Earth must have some natural resources to live. They use others to simply make their lives better. Natural resources can be considered either renewable or non-renewable.
And it is non-renewable resources. Facing off against the challenge of renewable resources.
Non-renewable resources have a fixed amount, and they can be used up. Examples include coal, natural gas, oil, minerals, and nuclear energy. Technically speaking, even the sun's energy is non-renewable, but there's so much of it, it can't be used up in a human timescale. Renewable resources are just that. They are replenished by nature within a very short period of time. Renewable resources rely on the Earth's natural processes to be replaced. Renewable resources include plants, animals, water, and air. Trees are renewable. They can be used by humans and then replenished by nature in a relatively short amount of time. Here's how it works. We can cut trees down for lumber to build houses or furniture, or even use the wood to make something like this awesome guitar. In place of the tree we cut down, we plant a seedling, and in 40 to 60 years, there's a full-grown tree to take its place. Water, through the water cycle, is replenished or renewed much, much more quickly. The water that we drink, which incidentally makes up most of our bodies, is replaced in a short period of time by the water cycle. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. See? Replenished by nature. That's what makes it renewable. It's a cycle. The cool thing is, water is moving naturally through the water cycle, and the energy in that movement can be harnessed by humans as renewable power. Wind energy comes from solar heating of the earth from the sun. The heated air rises and the cooler air moves in to replace it. Ta-da! We have wind. The wind energy can be converted to energy that humans can also use. There are cycles all throughout nature. The oxygen we humans consume to live is replenished by natural cycles. We exhale CO2, carbon dioxide, which is absorbed by plants. And then, in combination with sunlight in a process that we call photosynthesis, they exhale oxygen that we can breathe. It's replenished by nature. There are lots of cycles in nature. The Krebs or nitrogen cycle, the carbon cycle, the oxygen cycle, the water cycle. There is also a rock cycle. There are even cycles within the earth, like geothermal energy. The water starts as rainwater that has fallen to the earth, percolates down to a magmatic, not magnetic, heat source in the earth. That heated or hot water now rises back to the surface because it's lighter. That hot water can be used as energy by humans, and the cycle starts all over again. This cycle is continuously replenished by nature. Fossil fuels, natural gas, coal, oil, are valuable and powerful sources of energy for humans. We make use of them by extracting the energy they contain by burning them. They are, however, non-renewable on a human timescale. When used, they are not replaced. Coal is a fossil fuel. It began as plants in a swamp a very, very long time ago. After the plants died, thousands of years of pressure from sediments pressing down, combined with heat, changed those plants into coal. Fossil fuels are extremely useful to humans, but they're not being replaced as quickly as they are being depleted. So eventually, they'll be used up. They are non-renewable. The sun is an interesting case in the renewable versus non-renewable conversation because the sun is really huge. And technically, its energy is non-renewable. It's not being replaced.
But the sun is so huge.
The use of the sun's energy by humans will not use it up. That's kind of hard to believe, isn't it? That something could be that huge? Imagine that the sun is the size of a basketball. Then that would mean that the Earth is the size of this wiffle ball. Nope. This eyeball. Nope. The Earth would be the size of this teeny wee little BB. That's right. If the sun were the size of this basketball, the Earth would be the size of this itty bitty little BB. That means there's a lot of solar energy available to us Earthlings from the sun. A lot. I even have a 21-panel solar array in my front yard to capture the sun's energy and to use it in my home and TV studio. I once visited an elementary school in Southern.
All right, I want to stop there. So there's one concern there. Most of us hardly have houses actually as big as that. that having a yard, and so on to put your solar panel, and so on. So we do have our limitation. Like for example, I live in an studio apartment, so it's something like a hotel, something like that, just with a kitchen. So the house area is limited. The only area that I have exposed to sunlight is my balcony. All right. So where am I going to put my solar panel if I will to actually go for that direction? I don't have a roof, and so on. So that will be very difficult as well. And also, when you talk about this renewable energy and non-renewable energy, so basically this economy highly likely is run by those non-renewable companies, those rich multi-billionaires, and so on. Okay, like for example, who will actually oppose the new use of renewable energy? The oil and gas company, for example, like Shell, British Petroleum, and even maybe Petronas, and so on. They might be okay if everybody is using renewable energy. Who is going to pump petrol in the petrol station? Then I'll be losing a lot of this revenue. Or so even though there's no, actually they didn't say that, they say they oppose that, but however that would basically affect their businesses. Okay, the price of, let's say, the crude oil, petroleum, gas, and so on, will drop tremendously. Okay, so that's why they are taking their own time. Okay, in moving towards renewable. So they will renew other first. They will renew other first. Trees, that one, okay, I agree. Okay, this one, I agree. That one I agree. With the replacement of, let's say, let's say the petrol that used by our car, no. We must take extra, because so that's why they move on to hybrid first, and so on. So they never actually go on and do research on this solar car, and so on, because solar car totally replace this the need for this petrol and even the electric car. So that's why you don't see quite a lot of people actually, yeah, we must go for electric car, and so on, to save the environment. In some country, maybe yes, but most of the country still no. Okay, maybe one of the other area is that the technology of our time, okay, we were limited by it. All right, so there isn't enough actually juice or enough battery to basically sustain, let's say, something like, by using, fossil fuels, petrol, that you can actually refuel easily, you can recharge easily, or even the facility to actually charge the cars. Okay, so that let's say, for example, just like how I mentioned it in my last class, whereby I'm from police. So whenever I'm driving back to police, so I need to drive something like 800 to 900 kilometer, right? So one single charge of battery is not going to be enough, okay, for me to go back to police. So what if, when I'm running, until KL, until Telok Intan, and so on, now the battery flat. Now handphone is okay. Okay, we can still use power bank. Okay, but when we're talking about car, so do we have this kind of, so basically that would require a lot of this legislation. Okay, like the government basically has to actually enforce such rules that in petrol station you must have this kind of electric car charger. And the type of charger must be universal. Okay, this car is only this charger is only suitable for this and this and this car. For that car, oh sorry, don't have. So we are quite worried about that. Even if I, as pro renewable energy as I am, I might have this few concern. I do not want to buy a car, so in the end, I can only use it, let's say, in JB. Okay, like for example, this natural gas car, right? Okay, whereby you have this natural gas being pumped into the car to replace the need for petrol, because natural gas is cheaper. But however, there's only a few of these actually petrol station. Actually, you can actually refuel your natural gas. Okay, so that would be a hinder or this limitation for using this kind of actually or moving towards this. But however, I know that the cycle actually takes times to do so. All right. So because people will like, I just buy this car, you know, do you expect me to change the car right now? All right. So there's a lot of this kind of limitation. All right. So maybe in the future it will be like, for example, the solar plus, you know, electric car, something like that. So we are using this electric power, and then we are using this solar power, okay, and maybe something like that. All right.
Southern California that had solar panels over its parking lot. It used that energy to power the elementary school. Cool, right? These days, there are lots and lots of humans. Energy is necessary for all human activities. Right now, there are about 7 billion of us. That's the most in all of human history. So, using nature's resources in very smart ways is really important. Alternative energy resources are considered renewable resources and rely on natural processes. Flowing or moving water, sunlight hitting the surface of the planet, heat in the core of the planet.
Other than this he mentioned one term about this alternative energy. For example, we can use our kelapa sawit. Okay, we can use our kelapa sawit as one of the method to actually process to produce petrol. All right. So, however, I understood that the price of this petrol being produced actually is a lot higher than the natural petroleum based petrol. So even alternative renewable, but it's still not that, you know, in business sense. All right, it's not that worth it yet. Okay, so simply because it's expensive in one sense, and also not many people is doing it yet. So as you know, when the technology is rare, you know, you're one of a kind, you know, and so on, obviously it's going to be expensive. All right, so people still do not have the courage, you know, and the motivation to move into that part, especially in the business world. We talk about profit, you know, how much I'm going to earn, you know, and so on. So it will be like, nah, never mind. We just let some others manufacturer do it first, you know. Then we see how's the outcome. Oh, it's good. Then only we go in. If it's not good, haha. Lucky we didn't go into that sector. All right.
The movement of air, plants growing and dying, are all part of the Earth's natural systems which produce energy that humans can use. Alternative energy resources include sun, wind, geothermal, biofuels, or biomass. Wind energy comes from changing the power of moving air into a useful form that we can use. Wind can be captured by wind turbines that spin and produce mechanical energy, which is converted into electrical energy, which we can use. Solar energy. Energy coming from the sun is converted to electricity that we can use. Sunlight hits a solar panel. The solar energy is converted to electric energy, and we can use it. Hydro or water power. Hydropower is energy captured from moving water. Hydroelectric energy is created by a dam. Falling water, driven by gravity, a natural system, turns a turbine which creates mechanical energy. A hydroelectric generator converts the energy into electricity that we can use. Tides on the oceans can also accomplish the same thing. Energy from the movement of water, of tides, can be captured as energy by humans. Geothermal energy uses heat from inside the Earth. Hot steam and water can be tapped by wells and brought from deep beneath the Earth's surface. The steam can be used to spin turbines to generate electricity. Or the energy from the heat can be extracted directly from the pipes for humans to use as energy. Biomass, or biofuel energy, is fuel made from plant or
Okay, there's another thing that I would like to add here. Now, what are other alternative energy that is available? So whenever there's a rain, okay, so generally there will be lightning. Okay, so have you thought about how many voltage, how massive is this lightning? Okay, the energy that contained in the lightning. Now imagine that if we have a system to harness the energy from the lightning, that would be good. Okay, because this lightning actually, when it strikes, somewhere, it's going to change this system or the pattern of this ion protons, and surrounding it. Okay, so if there is a way to collect this energy, now Nikola Tesla basically did that. Okay, whereby they are going to actually provide, he is planning to provide this free energy, okay, by having let's say this kind of electro protons, and collectors, installed at every house, whereby it will collect all the charges, so what is the proof of that? So when you are trying to rub your, I think you believe you already did that during school back then. So you are going to rub your, let's say, the plastic rulers for some times, and then you attach it near the pieces of paper. It will have this kind of static charge that will actually attract the paper. So that's one of the charges, even though that is too small. But however, when you collect a lot of smalls, then it will become huge. So back then, okay, back then, okay, Nikola Tesla basically proposed this, and then his rivals basically is who? Thomas Edison. Now Thomas Edison is the founder of light bulbs, and so on, electricities, and so on. But his approach is basically what we have right now. So it's going to benefit the entrepreneurs, and so on, whereby whenever we use the electric, we have to pay, and so on. Now, what if back then we actually buy, or we actually did the Nikola Tesla way? Then everybody is using free electricity. So people like Rockefellers, and so on, they won't be benefiting from it. How am I going to charge you for something that is free? Now give a thought about that. There's a huge conspiracy in this kind of things. When it's free, yeah, we love it, but the entrepreneurs don't like that. If I'm giving you free, where my profit is going to come from? All right?
animal waste. Energy from the sun is stored in plants. That energy is then converted into a solid, liquid, or gas that can provide energy for human use. Non-renewable resources exist in a fixed amount, so once used up, it's going to take millions of years to make more. Non-renewable resources include coal, natural gas, oil, and nuclear energy. Fossil fuels are pretty amazing. They've allowed humans to grow more food than ever before, design and build space-age homes that can control light and temperature, and even travel outside our biosphere to the moon and beyond. Unfortunately, when burned, fossil fuels create hydrocarbon pollution that harms the planet. Right now, the vast majority of energy we humans use is non-renewable. Renewable resources, solar, biofuel, hydropower, geothermal, and wind are sometimes called alternative energy because they are less commonly used than non-renewable resources. Renewables produce less pollution and can be replenished by nature in a relatively short amount of time. Renewable. Use it, it comes back. Give it some time, it comes back. It comes back. The future of renewable technology is very exciting. Be on the lookout for cars that can be powered by water, or plants, or even state-of-the-art cars that run on electricity, which of course can be powered by the sun. Natural resources are things that people use that come from the environment. They can be non-renewable or renewable.
What are natural resources?
Natural resources are things that people use that come from the environment.
So that's why I mentioned previously that for all the trees that being cut down, you need to replant it, okay? Or else it might take a long time for it to be replenished, and so on. All right. So when planting back a trees, and so when planting back a plant, it doesn't mean that you chop down a tree and then you plant a few kangkong. That will be all right. Okay, it's different. All right. Because the function is different, okay? So, like for example, okay, I chop down the whole tree and then I'm building golf course. Still, I'm planting back grasses, and so on, but that would be different. Can you imagine that the amount of landslides, and so on, and the flood, that we have, okay, over the years, is caused by who? How? And so on. It's caused by our development, okay? So let's move on to the next video. Okay. Okay, as we say that we are going to move into this renewable material. All right. Okay, so that renewable material is basically a derivative from this renewable energy, whereby some of the material that we use or already use, and how can we actually make it renewable? Okay, some of these, for example, like plastic straws. Okay, so now we need straws, especially when we are going out for our let's say McDonald's, and so on. We have our cold drinks, and carbonated drinks, and so on. We go for our bubble tea, and so on. So this kind of we go for our Starbucks, coffee beans. So it involves a lot of this. For example, the plastic cups, the plastic straws, and so on. So one of the way of renewable is, let's say we use the paper cup. We use a paper-based kind of straws, probably with some coating is going to last, let's say, for a few hours before the paper actually becomes softened, and actually melts, or become back to mesh of papers, and so on. It will last for a few hours. That would be sufficient if you are talking about just having a drinks, and so on. And maybe some of the more responsible user, they might actually bring their own cup. Okay, so I bring my own thermos, like how I practice it. Okay, so I do not want any packaging material. I do not want any plastic bags. I do not want any plastic for holding or my teh tarik, and so on. So I do not use straw. Okay, I have my own metal straw. Okay, so that's made from metal. So after I use it, I can wash and reuse it. So on my part, I can save up some straws over the years. I can save up some plastic bags over the years. Okay, so that might be something that is not to say cool, maybe troublesome, but however, it is meaningful to do. All right. So we move back to this this thing that I share with you in the chat. Okay. So we still have a few minutes, so we talk about this thing. Okay. Now, these are the 6R that is very, very famous or important. Okay. So one of these R is called repair. Okay. When your item is spoiled, okay. So can I look for a way to repair it? Okay, so that I can extend the life of this particular product. Like for example, if my fan already not functioning, so am I going to change a new fan, or I'm going to repair it so that it can be used for further, for let's say for some years, or for maybe for some times. Okay, so can it be repaired cheaply? So there's we have to consider the financial term as well. If sometimes people might be arguing like, what for, go and repair it, things are so cheap nowadays. Okay, you repair, it'll cost you tens of ringgits of doing so. And if you buy a new one, it will be costing you about the same amount. Why don't you just buy a new one? Okay, I can buy a new one, but how am I going to do with the old one? Okay, I'll recycle it. All right. So maybe I'll send it to this recycle material collector. They will take back all the plastic parts, the metal parts, and the copper wires, everything, and so on. And then they will sell it back to the manufacturer to be reused in the new product. If that's so, it's still okay. Okay, so maybe I can reuse it. Some of this material can be reused. All right, for example, like the glass bottle, like I mentioned to you in this previous recording, whereby this, like for example, this milk delivery company, actually they deliver the milk in the bottle, in the glass bottle packaging. So whenever they are delivering it to you the next day, so assuming that you're having milk every day, so the next day they will collect back the old bottle and then they will leave at your door with the new bottle with milk inside, right? So can you actually accept that? Okay, because maybe sometimes they claim that I do not know how the previous user actually used it. They might be, just opening up the bottle and then they put into their mouth and drink straight away from the bottle. No, I don't want that. It feel like it's so okay. So and then this by refusing, okay. So some of these actually product that contain, okay, let's say this hazardous or this non-eco-friendly products, and so on. I refuse to use that. I would want a product with a packaging of at least with a packaging that uses, okay, let's say this recycling material. Okay, for example, something like that. So nowadays there's a lot of this kind of campaign by this manufacturer, even though some of their product might not be that eco-friendly, but however their packaging is. Okay, so this kind actually would actually silence a lot of critics, okay, and so on, so that okay, this at least they have some percentage of the product actually is quite useful or helping the environments, and so on, so we can still okay, not so bad, and so on, something like that. Okay, so we have the choice. We have a choice to actually to buy something or don't buy something. But however, I know that human actually have this kind of urge of need to buy something. Okay, when I see this, the design is so nice, so pretty, and so on, I want to own it. Even you already have a perfectly nice, handbag, and so on, that you have been using for years. But when you see a new one, you'll be like, ooh, the hands start get itchy, and then when you look at your old bag, you'll be like, this old bag, having this problem, that problem, the compartment is not so big enough, and so on. However, then of course, because you want to buy it, okay, so you will see the new thing as everything is good there. All right, it's just the same as when you want to change handphone, and so on. All right, so you can actually refuse to use it. All right. So another one is by reducing the usage. Like for example, I will want to reduce in the using of, let's say, tissue papers. All right, I use handkerchief instead. But some of the times I can't use the handkerchief because, for example, like a wet table, and so on. So when I want to wipe my hand, I can choose to wash hand. Okay, but however, if let's say if you are dining outside, the table is a little bit dirty, oily, and so on, you would want to use your, let's say, this kind of special antibacterial kind of white tissue to actually wipe it. Okay, so to maintain, let's say, the hygienist, and so on, then you have to use it. But however, okay, try to reduce the usage. Okay, unless it is necessary, or else I won't. For example, this kind of philosophy. All right, so you rethink about it. Okay, so what do you rethink about? Okay, is buying this particular product necessary? Okay, so what benefits do I get from it? Okay, maybe it's like, okay, my old car is already spoiled, and so on, and it keep on breaking down very often, and so on, so all the mechanical parts is like queuing up, waiting to actually to be serviced, to be changed, to be maintained, to be repaired, and so on. So I actually spend more money maintaining the car, okay, over the months. So maybe it's time to change the car. Okay, so maybe it's like my smartphone is already 7 years old, and so on. There's a lot of these new apps I can't install anymore. Okay, so maybe it's because of the restriction of the software, and so on, and maybe because of the, let's say, the 7 years ago. So the RAM might not be big enough, the ROM might not be big enough, and so on. So it starts, create a lot of problems on my daily work routines, and so on. Even checking Facebook also, it will be hanging, and so on. So maybe it's time to change. All right, unless unless it is necessary. So else you have to rethink about changing. Like for example, if I just want to change from, let's say, iPhone 12 to iPhone 13, is that necessary? I know maybe you have the money, but is that necessary? Maybe for somebody who actually uses, this movie editing, a lot, and so on, you require, a very high performance smartphone with very good lenses, and so on, to actually do all this video editing. Then maybe yes. But generally, most of the reviews that I see, for example, let's say, should I upgrade my iPhone 12 to iPhone 13? Most of the reviews say no. Okay. Despite that it is a bit faster, despite that it has a very good camera editing, and so on. Okay, other than that, not so much different. Okay, so you need to actually rethink about it. Okay, if you want to do that, maybe for a more meaningful upgrade in terms of technologies. For me, my practice is I wait for 3 models. Okay, I wait for 3 or 4 models. Okay, so that I would have a big leap of improvement when I change to a new one, right? Maybe something that we can consider. Okay, the last one before we end our class is recycle. So we must actually have an understanding on what can be recycled, what can't be recycled, and then do we have this willingness to go through all this troublesome in segregating our waste. Like this one is tulang-tulang, and those unfinished food, those are the food that will decay. Okay, so those are the wet kind of waste, and so on. So we need to pack it differently. These are bottles, these are aluminiums, these are papers. Do we have this kind of separation in terms of bins, and so on in the house? Okay, do we do that? Okay, so actually to support this kind of industry, also not I am doing it, but my apartments, the management, basically they have to have this. So far, sadly say, that in my apartment there isn't anything like that. Okay, so they just provide a green bin in the common area so that you can throw it. But my practice is that, okay, whenever for anything that is like the tulang fish, the decaying foods, everything, the leftover rice, vegetable, and so on, I'll throw into the green bin. But however, for example, like the cardboard, okay, for the aluminium can, for beverage drinks, and so on. And for this kind of bottle, sometimes I use it for my, let's say, the ketchup, and so on, with the leftover bottle, right? So normally, I'll just leave it beside and underneath the green, the tong sampah that we have, the bin that we have. I just leave it beside, so that normally I can see that normally in my apartment, the cleaner, basically, they will actually collect it and they'll put it somewhere. Okay, they'll put it somewhere. I seen that. I seen that, and I asked her, okay, you are collecting it? Yeah, this one I can sell it. Okay, and the price is quite good. When I collect it up to like something like 1 kilo, and so on, for aluminium can, it's something like 20 over ringgit for per kilo of let's say this aluminium can. All right. So and then the glass bottle, per glass bottle is something like 10 cents or something like 5, 7, 8, 10 or 10 cents, something like that each. All right. So I did this actually, and I don't see a lot of people doing that. Okay, most of the time people are just kenapa buat banyak sangat macam tu? Why you have to do so much? Okay, just put everything in one plastic bag and throw it. Okay, since there's no bin separations, and so on, everything will be thrown into this thing, right? So it's like that. All right. So that's why you have to actually change an approach of yours, okay? And hopefully that, okay, you can influence the people around you, okay? Your loved one, your family, your brothers and sisters, your auntie, your uncle, your grandma, your grandfathers, and who knows, they might also influence the people around them, their neighbors, and so on, so that the circle or the community basically work towards that. All right. So when more people is working on it, then we might actually form a certain force, okay, or a certain, let's say, a practice that we could actually demand, or maybe somebody who knows somebody, a VIP, of this country, or the cemetery, and so on. So they are related to them, they might be, hey, our country actually need this, I know, in JB, in this particular area, most of the people is doing that already. So how come you are not actually providing this kind of convenience for them, creating this kind of separation of bins, and so on, for to ease the actually recycling, and so on. And maybe a new business actually will sprung out from this actually activities, whereby to have this kind of waste management company. Okay, our waste management company is a very profitable industry nowadays, because most of the waste people actually throw it away freely. Okay, so your incoming material or this raw material is actually free or next to free, so you pay peanuts for something valuable. So the profit, even though maybe it's not that fancy, the factory might not be that clean, and so on, but it's a very profitable company. All right. So think about that. That can be one of these future needs to process all the waste produced by human. So who knows? The next entrepreneurs might come from you, or even myself, right? All right. So this is the 6R that is being discussed here. So, okay, I think you have another class. So, all right, I think I'll end the class here. All right, we can discuss further in our tutorial. So when we discuss about these sustainability passive questions. All right, so I think that's all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.